Winter of Silence and Light by Sarah Arbery Hinkle. Beside the Duck Pond House, Book 2. To my children Helena, Thomas, Andrew, Lilia, Anna Rose, and Gregory, now you'll understand why I love houses. Love, your mom. Nell stepped out into the chill evening air, her breath misting in front of her eyes. Her beautiful snow-white duck Birdie waddled over to her. She bent to ruffle her feathers. The 3 other farm ducks had flown away, seeking warmer climes, but Birdie was too tame and had stayed behind. Nell opened the thick doors of the old cellar and guided Birdie inside. She settled her into the old stables, thick with hay and slightly damp from the cold. Birdie's feed was in an old trough in the corner. Nell inhaled the musty combination of scents and then ascended the first flights of stairs of her beautiful house. She imagined bats lurking in every shadow of the dark and cold basement as she hastened her pace. As she ran, she passed the laundry room where a chute ran all the way from the 5th floor. Sometimes Nell's siblings would climb in and squeal with delight as they barreled down, landing with a soft thud from a heap of laundry below. As Nell entered the kitchen hallway from the cellar stairs, she was greeted by the noise of her busy family. In the kitchen, Nell's parents were grading essays. They were professors, one of classical literature, the other of political science. One of Nell's greatest delights was spending time at the college, especially sitting in her father's lectures about Homer. Somehow, the lofty topics always seemed to make sense when filtered through his warm southern accent and gentle storytelling. Nell's grandfather had given the house to his youngest daughter, Nell's mother, because he adored her and wanted to give her the desire of her heart, a grand old mansion where she could raise her 8 children. Though it looked dark and gloomy from the outside, the house was full of nooks and crannies, built-in shelves, and hiding spots galore, all of which delighted Nell and her siblings. One of Nell's favorite rooms was the office. It had rich, built-in bookshelves and benches upholstered in burnt orange leather. Sometimes, while Motherwort and Nell would quietly curl up on the soft benches, breathe in the musty scent of old books, and drift into a peaceful nap. That night, Nell passed her mother's office and skipped up the several flights of stairs to the room she shared with her sisters. She settled into her beloved window seat and opened her book. Later, after setting aside her mystery novel, she crawled into bed beside Essa and Elaine. The house was cold and drafty, but bundling up together under the heavy blankets made her feel safe, warm, and content. By morning, the peace had vanished. Her sisters glared at her, bleary-eyed and irritated. Nell had spent the night kicking, spinning in circles, and stealing all the covers, leaving them cold and miserable. Without much thought for the restless night she had caused her sisters, Nell returned to her outdoor explorations as soon as she could. As she wandered beneath the trees, she spotted something small and still on the ground. A baby squirrel had fallen, its tiny body crawling with ants, its breath shallow and faint. Nell dropped to her knees without hesitation, her heart tightening with anxious concern for its fragile life. For it to help, Nell ran inside for a warm washcloth and a shoebox. She pleaded with her siblings and parents for assistance, but everyone was preoccupied. Nature, Nell was learning, often had its own unforgiving path. Despite all her efforts to nurse the tiny squirrel back to health, it died anyway. She wept bitterly, her small hands scraping against the frozen ground as she dug a shallow grave. With soft, broken prayers, she laid the little creature to rest. The stark winter world around her felt colder and grayer. Inside, dinner was waiting. Rice, beans, and chicken. Nell barely touched her plate. She often ate like a bird, picking at her food. Sometimes she refused to eat at all, prompting a battle of wills. No one seemed to notice how much the squirrel's death had weighed on her. Nature is cruel, Nell thought. As winter tightened its grip, more and more of the animals disappeared from the yard and went into hibernation. Still, Nell kept watch for signs of her woodland friends. One afternoon, she spotted a mole scurrying across the snow. A neighborhood cat, hot on its trail. Without thinking, Nell let out a battle cry and charged across the yard, scaring the cat away. The mole lay stunned in the snow, trembling. Nell watched over the shivering creature until he wandered off back to the safety of his tunnel. The backyard was still again. Nell turned away from its silent mysteries and headed back toward the house. Nell headed inside, then paused, remembering Birdie. She ran through the cold and gloomy cellar to the old stall, greeted Birdie, and knelt down to collect the warm, large, mottled white eggs. Afterward, she rejoined her family. In the still of the winter evening, they gathered around the Advent wreath and lit the first candle. Their voices rose in songs of anticipation for their long-awaited Savior. Christmas was always a time of joyous festivities and delicious food. Nell's older sister Lucy was busy planning the annual Christmas performance, a tradition the children put on each year for the college students and professors who remained in town over the holidays. This year's play was The Wizard of Oz. Essa, one of Nell's sisters, had been cast as Dorothy, much to Nell's dismay. Furious, Nell stomped, kicked, and loudly protested the injustice. She vowed to quit the performance, and everyone responded with their familiar, affectionate laughter reserved just for her histrionic displays of passion and emotion. As everyone else immersed themselves in preparing lines, costumes, props, and sets, Nell began to regret her impulsive decision. Though her pride held her back, she eventually approached Lucy and asked if there was still a part for her. Lucy graciously offered her the role of the Tin Man. On Christmas Eve, Nell welcomed the guests from the cottage into the main floor entryway. They left their coats and hats in the lovely foyer, which opened into the parlor. A magnificent two-story staircase, crafted from rich dark wood, with a built-in bench at its base, immediately caught the eye. Its banister was wrapped in white, twinkling lights that shimmered softly in the glow of the evening. A roaring fire in the living room crackled in a cast-iron wood stove, filling the house with its warmth and the richness of its scent. From the dining room came sounds of students, faculty, friends, and family laughing and talking as they enjoyed the food. The wood-covered ceilings and built-in butler's pantry attracted their admiration. Later, Nell's parents gathered with their colleagues and students in the piano room, while the children took center stage on the large landing of the staircase. Elaine stepped forward and warmly welcomed everyone to the evening's performance. The play was a delight. The audience was enchanted, clapping and laughing, cheering as the children brought the classic tale to life. When it was over, Nell and Essa stepped forward and took a bow, their faces glowing with pride. As the talking, eating, singing, and dancing continued into the evening, Nell slipped away to a quiet corner to read. The thrill of the performance and the excitement of the festivities had been fun, but she often needed solitude after so much commotion. Finally, when the last of the guests had gone, Mother and Father gathered the children for the conclusion of their Advent tradition. Nell, Elaine, and Essa huddled together in their darkened bedroom, one of them cradling a baby Jesus figurine. They waited for Mother and Father to knock at the door and ask them the solemn question, "Is there any room in the inn?" "No," they would reply softly. Then Essa, Elaine, and Nell joined their parents and siblings in a quiet procession to the living room. Nell leaned over the empty manger of the creche and gently placed the baby Jesus figure in the hay. Silently and reverently, her family reflected on the Christ child's humble entrance into the world. Christmas morning was beautiful. The tree, chosen just days earlier, filled the house with its glorious scent. Its decorations were a riot of color. Handcrafted ornaments made by the children mingled with delicate, blown glass treasures, fragile and intricate. But most magical of all were the presents. Somehow, they always appeared as if by magic, an unexpected outpouring of material blessings. Nell loved receiving gifts. It was almost unbearable waiting as each sibling carefully unwrapped their presents in turn. She especially anticipated the books that each year seemed to find their way under the tree. This year, she received a beautiful illustrated storybook called The Enchanted Book. The story told of 3 sisters, each stolen away by an evil enchanter. The youngest sister had to outwit the villainous enchanter to free her siblings and the other women he had imprisoned. Nell was spellbound. After Christmas Mass, Nell went down to the dark cell and told Birdie all about her favorite book and character. There, in the quiet and solitude, she imagined herself as the brave youngest sister, not just playing the part, but fully adopting the character as part of her own identity. The Christmas season slowly came to an end, and the tree was taken down and the ornaments carefully packed for next year. The children, waiting in anticipation for the pond to transform into their very own skating rink. At last, the pond froze over. Nell laced up her skates and made her way to the ice. Cautiously, she stepped out, wobbling as she moved one foot forward, then the other, attempting a figure 8, She tumbled hard onto her tailbone. Undeterred, she got back up and tried again. As long as she was alone on the pond, Nell skated with confidence and abandon. But as her siblings and neighborhood children gradually joined, her carefree spirit gave way to caution. Still, she continued to skate, pushing herself as far as she dared until the swift darkness of evening forced them all inside. The snow piled higher and higher, transforming from soft powder to hard, ice-crusted banks. Nell muddled up in layers, a hat, scarf, mittens, snowsuit, and thick boots. In her frozen wonderland she built igloos, though they were only large enough for her to crawl inside. After a few minutes of play, she would retreat indoors, shivering and red-cheeked. The next day, Nell's siblings invited the neighborhood kids over, and they began jumping off the porch balcony into the deep snowbanks below. Nell tried to be the voice of reason, urging caution, but her warnings went ignored. Disheartened, she grabbed her book, an interesting story about an adventurous young girl on the western frontier. She wandered over to her favorite tree, a weeping willow, seeking solace for her thoughts. She tried to read, but her mind drifted. A soft peep from a beautiful male cardinal comforted her. As evening fell, she headed back inside into the warmth and familiar comforts of home. Her brothers and sisters had settled down after their busy day of frivolity. Nell, holding her silky blanket and her book, joined her family in the living room. Her mother made hot chocolate while her father gathered everyone around the wood stove for family prayers. Later he read aloud from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Nell smiled and drifted off to sleep, lulled by the heat of the crackling fire, the comforting cadence of her father's voice, and the cheerful chatter of her animated family. Soon, new life would return to the pond. Nature would awaken once more from its winter slumber, the skies growing brighter as the days lengthened and the trees blossomed into the beauty of the coming spring. The end.